Oh, okay, we're on. There it is. I at the last minute I go, wait, my hair.
I'm gonna do the same thing.
or what's left of it anyway. Hey, welcome everybody. I'm here with Katherine Grasso from DeSales University, which is a small Catholic university here in southeastern Pennsylvania. Katherine, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
And wait, tell me. Yeah, no, it's really nice. It's cool. What are you? What do you teach, by the way?
I teach communication studies. So it's sort of broad. I teach intercultural communication. Now I'm teaching some persuasion. I also teach research methods. My interests have kind of ranged from health information seeking to safer sex communication and sex ed. So I like to have my fingers in a lot of different things.
Cool. Yeah, very cool. It's where are you from originally, by the way?
Originally I'm from Lake Tahoe, Nevada. So it's a big shift moving out to PA, but I like it.
Yeah. I think I went through Lake Tahoe a couple of times, going kind of back and forth between Vegas and Portland.
Oh yeah, that would be a good spot to go through. It's nice.
Or no, Vegas and Sacramento, but either way. Yeah,
either way.
How is it to experience all four seasons compared to your childhood, where I assume you probably didn't have as long maybe as the 4 seasons we do here?
No, so in Tahoe, we are at a really high elevation, and we get all 4 seasons. It's beautiful, and it's not humid, so I would say that it beats PA. I do love the 4 seasons, but I like the 4 seasons in the high desert without the humidity.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah.
And we have more intense winters, so I tend to think that people here are a little bit kind of wussy sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's funny. Yeah. Hey, so you reached out to me after the class on Charlie Kirk that we did, and you just had some questions about, what I'm doing and how to, as a fellow academic, right? Just a bunch of questions. And I said, hey, why don't you just jump on the screen? And there were a lot of them, and they were really, really good questions. And I felt like I wanted to answer them, but it seemed like it'd be a lot easier just to do it on the stream, because I thought my answers might be interesting to other people. So here we are.
We are.
Yeah. So go ahead and fire. What are some of the questions that you have?
So it was the lecture about Charlie Kirk, and it was also, I had watched your office hours where you talked with Peter Boghossian, and you said something about, between having students hate you and them learning a lot, or students really liking you and learning a little, which would you pick? And you unequivocally said, oh, I'd rather them hate me and learn a lot. And I thought that's really admirable. And I don't know that I could totally say that I feel that way. Like, I want to be liked, which I don't know that I'm allowed to say that, but I want my students to like me. So that, coupled with the kind of not rise of cancel culture, but the existence of cancel culture, I think about how in conversation with faculty, I hear about people being afraid of their students, of their faculty peers, maybe their administration or people at professional conferences, that what if I say the unpopular thing and how will people react? And so I thought, oh my gosh, I want to reach out to Sam and just see what I could pick your brain about. So I'm curious how you think this kind of, having to follow the dominant viewpoint, say the things that are popular, how do you think it affects students' learning?
Yeah, that is such good questions. First off, if I could go back to that conversation with Peter, I think I would alter what I said, or at least I would put a footnote around it. And the footnote would be, I've never not been liked. My whole life. Like, I smile a lot. I'm very friendly. I like people. It's always been true for me. I'm not very loud. I tend to pretty quickly, I can fall to the background, and people like folks like me, right? I can be like a wallflower in a lot of situations, but people don't understand that, because people see me in this big room being a really big personality. But the fact is, like, I can blend in pretty easily. So when when I think he asked that question, I'm like, well, yeah, I would rather people not like me and learn from me. But the fact is, people don't dislike me. I mean, some people do, obviously, but my history with human beings throughout my life is that people generally like me, and I like them. So, even people I don't like, I like.
That makes me feel better, because I kind of had a thought of like, must be nice, and maybe I don't know if this is too like feminist of me to say that as a woman, I often feel like being liked is the precursor to being respected.
Sure.
And so if students don't like me, I almost don't feel like they could hear me. So, but I appreciate the sentiment of, I want to put students learning above and beyond how they feel about me, which I think is crucial to talking about hard things.
Well, okay. So there are a couple things, right? Also, now, once I started to enter the classroom space, I have certain advantages, right? I'm a man, I'm white, I'm not disabled. I have certain advantages. Okay. We're going to actually use an article. I sent it to Julie a couple weeks ago about this, about women who teach, women professors, and how they're rated much more harshly than men. And I've known that from pretty early on. About 35 years ago, I had a colleague who was teaching the same class that I was teaching here at Penn State. She's a Black woman. And she was super, super, just really a lovely human being, and laughed really easily, and loved her students, just was like a really kind person, outgoing, funny, this kind of thing, right? And she was married to a white guy. So she was talking about race. I'm talking about race, but students they challenge her. It's like, what do you know about white people? So she would say the same stuff I was saying, and they would come at her. And I'd be like, hey, wait, hang on. Okay, let's do this. You talk, you say this, and I'm going to say the same thing, kind of, let's see what happens. And she would get hammered. And women, my colleagues who are women, I know they get treated more harshly. Well, I know it from my wife, because the things people say to my wife, I'm like, whoa, man, even when she comes in the classroom, people jump on they say things on the stream sometimes that are so mean to her. My God. I'm like, dude, you do know that that's my wife, right?
Yeah. And a person.
Yeah. And a human being. And it's really difficult. Like, she doesn't like that. And it happens. I will say it happens almost every time. Almost every time that she comes on.
Unfortunate. In my experience at DeSales, my students are really, really respectful, but I think I taught a semester at sea, and it's a study abroad program that students go on a ship to numerous countries. And I taught a big lecture class with 2 other faculty. We team taught it, and they were both men. And even the way that the students would interact with us outside of the lecture hall, I didn't want to give it all the weight of gender, because we were talking about different things. Much of what I was talking about was much more serious, and I think I was more stoic in delivering the content. So maybe I seemed less approachable. It hasn't impacted my feeling of, can I be successful in the classroom? But it certainly hasn't been non-existent. That there's moments where I'm acutely aware that people see me as a woman, and there's a little bit more to overcome to be seen as legitimate. And part of that is being nice and being liked, legitimate.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you could just you train yourself to do that. Look, I'm walking down the street, and I get a certain kind of, there's a certain kind of smile that I get. Sometimes it's like, hey, I don't know what this. Look, I'm an open-minded sociologist. I am not trying to push some kind of social justice, feminist narrative ever at all. I'm not. It's not my thing. But I have to say what I see, and sometimes what I see is stuff that falls in line with left feminist social justice perspectives. It's obviously every perspective has some truth in it. So I see it. I experience it from women sometimes. I'm like, wait, why are you smiling at me like that? it's not because it's not you. What you want something from me, and what you want is some kind of, I don't know, not approval per se, but something. So I hear that, and you have to be aware of that in a classroom, and I don't. And yeah, that's.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I don't want to give it too much weight, because I think that what the crux of what you were saying should be something that informs people's pedagogy, that students should be taking something away, even if it puts the faculty in a more challenging position. That should be our job, is to be challenged and to challenge them. So I'm just curious, what are students, in your eyes, what are students losing if the faculty take the path of least resistance? I'm just going to say what's easy, popular, that's not going to get any pushback.
Well, I think what they lose in not being challenged, they lose the opportunity to question their thoughts and their beliefs. And, in the academy, we don't, for example, I think there's just sort of across the board, except at a very small percentage of schools, the vast majority of people in the academy don't regularly challenge conservative thought. Well, they don't teach conservative thought, I would say. They don't really know conservative thought. So this is something that Lori, my wife, talks about all the time. It's like we almost for many people, it just is not central. And part of it's not central because, young people are, well, I don't know, whatever. So I think students don't get the challenge. And I think that's a problem. And they don't see us wrestling with things and taking risks. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do faculty take the risks, knowing, okay, student outcomes should be, we should give them the opportunity to think critically. Yeah. And there's this very high risk, some higher than others, I think, for the possible pushback, whether it's from students, peers, administration, whoever.
Yeah.
Well,
and
how do faculty do it?
Yeah. And that it's just one complaint goes up the system and down the system, right? One complaint, right? Happens in my class. So if I get one student that writes to our special hotline to say, hey, Sam Richards said X in class, or he did something or whatever, and I was really uncomfortable and I don't like it, and I felt some kind of way. Well, it goes up, and then, to the central administration, comes down, and then I got to respond to it. One little thing. And that's a big class. But now you take a small class like you, and you take a challenge, and you have a couple students who are just like, hey, this, Professor Grasso, I don't like what she's doing in class. That's big, man. This is not, that's your reputation. Your entire reputation is that, actually. So why would you take a risk? Why would anybody take a risk? Why do I take risks? I don't know. I think that's what people on the outside don't really understand about the academy. And I think it's probably why too many of us, we stay right in the center lane, or we go in the slow, we're not in the center lane, we're in the slow lane, the right lane, the non-passing lane, and we just go at a steady pace, and we convince ourselves that we're doing the best for our students. But the fact is, we're not really taking the risks that would truly benefit our students.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it also feels hard because I think I'm lucky that I'm at an institution that the administration is very supportive. I've had complaints, and the administration has supported me. So there is the sense of, okay, I'm willing to take risks. I think that I can back up what I'm doing. But sometimes I even had a conversation in my class today with students and said, are you guys afraid to speak up, even if you knew that I wasn't going to be upset? And they kind of all were like, they're scared of each other. Yeah, and the survey data shows this too, that even if a faculty is doing so much of the work to say, we're going to be open to ideas and let's really flesh out why we think the way that we do and come up with good reasons, that students are really afraid. And I don't know if it's kind of this like boogeyman fear that if they see something terrible happen online and they think, oh, that's got to be the person next to me in class, when in reality, I think they're probably much more like easygoing than they think.
Yeah,
how do we cultivate trust between students?
I think you have to really just help them understand that, the commentary they see on social media is only there because people can make those statements on social media, but we don't do that to one another. And we don't do it out in the world, right? When we see somebody breaking some cultural moray or something, we rarely challenge them. Really, I mean, you see videos all over Facebook and Reddit and this kind of stuff about people fighting with each other. But the truth is, it doesn't happen very much. And I think students have to be reminded, hey, look, your colleagues, they're quite forgiving of the things that you say, and they really want to hear what you have to say. And you see it in my class. I think we're really demonstrating that. So I think you, as an instructor, as a professor, you have to really push that for them so that they get past that initial fear.
Mm-hmm. I do wonder sometimes when I've watched lectures of yours that I wonder, are the students being fully candid, or are they hyper aware of the fact that their peers are looking on, that they're being recorded? Is there maybe it's less self-censorship than in other classes, but are they still softening what might be perceived as a blow?
Well, both are happening, but they are actually quite surprisingly candid, okay? Because they don't know. But we just are. Lori and I discovered this 30 years ago when we started recording our what are these small group dialogues, and putting cameras in the room didn't change at all what the things that people said. Okay. We tell people, okay, you got, so-and-so's watching, or we're going to have the tape and we're going to use it for training. Didn't change at all the kinds of things, because one group to the next, everyone's doing the same thing. I see that with my class. But the way it softens, it does soften them, is that they have to be more thoughtful, and they know they have to be more thoughtful. So they can't be like, they're at the corner bar or wherever in their dorm room having an argument with their friend, or just saying random things that come to their head. It's like they actually, which is why, they have to be more thoughtful, which is why you get a lot of students who'll be like, I don't know what I think about, because they're thinking like, whoa, okay.
Which is good training. Like, that's how we should operate in the real world, so that we're not just saying the first thing that comes to mind and hurting anyone in our way.
Yeah. And I think probably most of us do that most of the time anyway, except, in our families and that kind of thing. But,
yeah. So you're in a really unique position that, because the class is online, because a student before taking the class can get a sense of who you are, how you run things, what will be expected of them, that you can cultivate trust before they walk in the door. For the rest of us, that has to happen starting on day one, or maybe through other forms of our reputation preceding us.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on what it looks like to cultivate trust in real time when you're asking students to talk about hard things and be open and trusting?
Man, this is such a really cool question. I can go back to what I used to do. I used to get very personal on the first day. So students they only knew me, but their friends might say like, hey, this is a really good class, or you'll like this guy, or whatever, but yeah, you're right. It starts from the very first moment. And I think I would get more personal and let people know more of who I am, and how much, where I came from, and, how I wasn't a great student, and this, that, and the other thing. And just like more stuff about me that's not perfect, because we're all in that position. So I would just reveal those parts of me. And I think that really helped to build trust, as it does for everybody. You see people's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that conflicts with, or do you care if it conflicts with what most faculty, I think they try to be neutral on things? Do you think by sharing so much about yourself that people go like, well, I think I know how he leans in this way, or what he really thinks, or he's just playing devil's advocate? Do you think that they try to like figure you out more?
I think they, no, I don't care. But I do have the advantage of really absolutely being all over the place in terms of the way I think about the world. As I've grown older, I'm more and more confused about what I think are really the best answers to some of these really perplexing problems that we're up against, And so, let's just take this Tylenol issue and women who are pregnant, right? I have this idea, well, Okay. So, but in the past, it's just, oh my God, please follow the science or whatever. And then I stop, and I'm like, well, hang on a second. So this here, we have this. I want to follow the science, but yeah, I don't know. Take less Tylenol anyway. You know what I mean? Like, do you really need Tylenol? Like, go. Yeah, some people do. But I'm always trying to find something that's just like that I can hang my hat on. That just says like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, don't take so much Tylenol anyway. I knew someone that took like 6 a day. I'm like, stop. I'm not saying that. Okay, people are gonna go, oh, Sam, you're completely missing the point. But the point is, I'm just trying to fit myself into every tiny little box in some way, because somebody else is believing this. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe I don't know everything. So I think students see that in me, and then they start to say, oh, first off, I'm never going to figure this knucklehead out, and that's a good thing for me, right? So yeah. How do you do that, by the way? Like, how do you build trust?
I think I do things similarly to you. Being at a small institution, a lot of times I will have either students in my classes who I've had before, or majors that I advise, or because it's a small community, we only have 2,400 undergraduates. People talk about faculty, so they kind of know. Yeah. But I think I'm quite. I try to be transparent about who I am, and I'm similar to you in that people will try to put me into one kind of broad box, and I'm thinking that there's no way that would be it's too simple. I have many diverse viewpoints on things, and I'm still sort of figuring things out as new information comes. But I think I think in some cases I've done a better job at it than in other cases. But when I've done it well, I think that it does go back to what you said of being kind of a human first, of here's what I'm struggling through. I'm really fine with saying I don't know. I don't pretend to be an expert on everything. I like to show people where I'd find my answers and how I'd poke holes in, an answer that I find. And I think that cultivates trust. I do this thing at the beginning of every class, and I have small classes, so I can do this. I just go around and I ask everyone to say one good thing. I just say, what's good? And so they might say like, oh, my coffee's really good, or my grandma's out of the hospital. It ranges from things that are super important or not. And then I can just follow up. And when I put examples into the lecture, I can know that someone's excited about the Eagles winning. And so I can make connections in that way. I get to know them, and it's fun. It also gets the nerves out for them to speak in class because they've said their good thing. It can't be wrong. And then everyone kind of
right.
a little bit brighter.
You can't argue with it. Well, you could argue with the Eagles if you're a Steelers fan, but whatever, right? Yeah, I got you. Hey, that's cool. I like that. Hey, I have this question for you. Also, another question. I'm always telling people. I'm always saying that. People on the outside who have never taught, especially never taught higher education, and certainly have not taught the humanities or social sciences and stuff, they have no idea how difficult it is to be balanced and thoughtful and keep our own perspectives out of the classroom. Like, come on, man. It's just impossible to do that. And you could try, even as hard as we try. Like, how do you do that? And how do you have any kind of meaningful conversation? Do you see that? I mean, right? Like,
oh yeah. Well, and then sometimes I think, okay, I know what I think about this, but I can't have that be the dominant narrative here. So I have to balance it. And then I'm thinking, okay, am I going too far to try to overcorrect? And sometimes I'm thinking the data are really clear. So I want it to be evidence-based, but I don't want it to seem like I'm cherry picking evidence to support what they think I think. So I think that the best professor in the classroom is really trying to think, how do I present things fairly and not with a personal agenda? But then as soon as you're aware of that, it almost feels like there's no best way to I don't know. That I know I'm rambling. It's not a good answer.
No, it's like, but then if you can cross over a line where you're manipulating, so the best you can do is sort of think out loud. Like, look, class, like, here's this issue, and let's think it through, and let's And but it takes so much, man. Look, I want to go back to the Tylenol thing. So I realize, so I think, okay, wait, people are pushing this, right? And they're saying like, okay, wait, the Kennedy and so on, saying like, we have data showing this is really bad for women when they're pregnant. I'm like, well, how come I haven't heard that? Or why aren't people saying that? Or why don't we already know that? And I'm thinking, but they know it. And then I start thinking, but maybe somebody's not hiding it, but maybe it's just one of these things where you just it's like, the leaf on the river. It's just carried down the river. And then I think, but I'm not digging away at the research to read what they're reading. Like, I'm not doing that. So I got to be really careful. I can't just throw an opinion out there because I got to go read it, but I don't have time to read it. And so therefore I just have to throw my hands up in the air and be like, well, I'm not going to comment on that because I really don't know. And
I think by doing that, then you're modeling what students should do, because what you're experiencing is what students will experience, whether it's the Tylenol topic or something else, that, hey, maybe before you decide with 100% certainty that you agree or disagree, or that this is the worst idea or the best idea, maybe you can remember that you haven't really done enough research to know any part of this, and that paying attention to what some people are saying and just taking that at face value, okay, probably not the best idea. Dig in a little and then make your own decision. So maybe by not knowing, you're showing students how to not know and figure it out along the way.
Yeah, or withhold your opinion or something. I don't know, because it would take to really read those studies. You got to have you have to have an advanced degree in statistical analysis, which my wife has, and she can read through those things. But even then, it's incredibly complicated. So it's like, even if I read the data, like, I don't understand it, so it's like, oh my God. And so then people say, okay, but Sam, what we expect for you to do is go in the classroom and be fair and be thoughtful and be like, well, be what? Be what? And so this is you, right, Catherine? You gotta stay at it and don't bring yourself in, and
Yeah, you can't bring yourself in. And then when the students bring themselves in, sometimes I find that we're talking about something that there is a level of research or objectivity that we can try to understand patterns in human behavior, in my case, communication patterns, that I can say, here's the body of research that tells us what our best understanding is. And then I have students who they've provided contributions to the class by saying, well, my experiences, or I feel like, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to invalidate that, because it's nice that they're sharing, but if it's totally contrary to what the conclusions are from the research, I don't know how to not devolve into like kind of this weird group therapy where people are sharing their feelings and we don't actually talk about evidence-based findings. So it feels really tricky to want students to talk about hard things without them bringing just their feelings.
Yeah. Because they don't have anything else to bring. Mostly, They don't have anything else. So here's what I'm hearing from you. Here's how I'm seeing you, right? You're kind of a typical college professor. You teach at this small school. Your class sizes are like, 20 to 25 kind of thing. But you're wrestling with the same things I'm wrestling with. You're doing the best you can do. If I had a child, I'd be really happy to have my child in your classroom, because you're very thoughtful. And what I'm hearing from you is you're very thoughtful. And so like, okay. And I think most of us are like that. The vast majority are like that. And it's quite a shame that people have this perception of our profession as people who are really trying to manipulate the young minds. And some people are, there's no question about it, right? But relative to the many hundreds of thousands of college professors, which I think, you and I are more typical of, it's quite unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I appreciate you saying that you see that I'm thoughtful. Sometimes it's almost at the point of paralysis. Like, how do I talk about something without bringing too much of myself or too much of this angle, or where am I getting the data? Is anyone going to feel manipulated? That's never what I want. I just want people. I even have a disclaimer in my syllabi that says I appreciate a diversity of ideas. I know that students report self-censoring when they perceive that their faculty want a certain answer.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to teach you what to think. I want you to know how to think. And I
Do you,
invite them
how
if
often do you say that to them?
I mean, it's in the syllabus, so I say it the first day. And then for any conversation where I think that there might be a sense of trepidation about talking about how
Mhm.
they understand the
Mhm.
topic, I bring it up again and say,
Good.
I'm not
Yeah,
looking
okay.
for a particular answer. I want to know why you think what you think. So I think it
Yeah.
comes up periodically, depending on some classes, it's a comm theory class. There's not a lot of tough
Yeah.
topics
Yeah,
to
yeah.
go over, but when I teach intercultural communication, I used to teach gender communication more often. It would come up a lot, and I would say, I don't have the right answer. I just want to know why you
Yeah.
think the way that you do.
That's so
I mean,
cool.
they're still
Yeah.
really afraid.
I think you got to just keep hammering away at it. I think you have to say it a lot,
Yeah.
and that's one thing that I would suggest. Just say it. Just be more often. Just keep hammering home. By the way, gender communication. Man, you, that's cool. That would be a very cool class. And people would say like, "Oh, why do we need that?" But well, have you ever lived with someone for a long time of the opposite sex or the opposite gender, however they identify? It's like, yeah, there's a lot of communication stuff. You could get a whole semester out of that.
Yeah, the way that our gender shapes the way we communicate and the way that gender is communicated to us of how we should behave.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
there one semester I was teaching it in the basement of the main building on campus, and I had it, usually the class was women, almost entirely women, because that's just how it goes. And it was all white, upper middle class students at this very homogenous, quiet school. And someone, in not a mean spirited way, she kind of said, like, why is this a class? Like, all women's experiences are kind of the same. Like, it's not bad anymore. And I thought, okay, we got some work to do. So I reached out to the coordinator at our local jail that has a women's unit, and I said, can we come by? So we went to the women's unit at the Northampton County Jail every other week all semester, and I just
Oh,
invited all
man.
the women to circle up with us and say, hey, what's your experience of womanhood? What does it mean to be you? And we went, it was kind of like an extreme move, but I just wanted them to see, like, oh,
That's so cool.
it was really
That's so cool. Man,
interesting.
that's life changing. That's the kind of thing that's just mind bending. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it
really
was really
cool.
rewarding.
Good for
And they were
you.
so scared at first. I was really scared, but it was good. But yeah.
Yeah, good for you. Oh
Thanks.
man, that's the thing. That's what all of this stuff is. It's so much fun, to expand our thinking in these ways. Yeah, man, I have so much to say. But listen, I'll let you hop off here.
Yeah.
Did you have a final question? Or are we good? Are we?
Well, I mean, I have a million questions. Do you have time for me to ask one question? I can.
Yeah, ask one more. Yeah.
If you were going to teach Soc 119 to a room of 20 students, what would be like the one way you'd start?
I think I would do the same thing that I do. I'd put a couple people up in the front and start asking them questions. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I would get the rest of the students to ask them questions too.
Yeah.
I'd probably do some things like, hey, write your questions down first and then let's go. And it would be all sorts of stuff that, that like, we're all different. You just spoke about that one class where it's very homogenous, but it's also heterogeneous because you can find everything that something that is, who has a parent that doesn't drive. It's like, whoa, what's that like? Like, whoa, how, that kind of stuff. So there's always something, and that's what makes the sociology of it really fascinating. So yeah, I would do that.
You might have to start using some of your tactics. They're so interesting to watch. I'm so grateful that you share them with the world because they're so cool.
Well, it really is just following students, by the way. So yeah, and following my wife, who's taught me how to ask questions. The thing that she has discovered and that she's known for many, many years is, look, if you just ask people questions, people are really smart. They have some really interesting answers to pretty much any question. I'm like, oh, all right. So just ask your students. But now she helps to refine the questions that I ask. So that some are better than others, like she knows how to ask a really good question. Like when I have that sheet of paper, it's very often the questions that she's given me because I ask them in a way that will elicit much more interesting responses. So
yeah. Well, she's a good asset then.
Yeah, well, this is I always say that. I often say, I mean, I say it as a joke, really, but you can sort of to be partnered up with someone who is smarter than can contribute. Like really, it's like wow. I say it all the time. So I'm so grateful to have
lovely.
to live with somebody.
Hey, Elijah is blowing up our Slack saying, "Why is she leaving?" Because he's been enjoying this conversation so much. There was a question from Eric, and he asked for Dr. How do you say your last name again? Grasso.
Grasso.
Yeah.
Grasso.
How do you feel with our society How do you feel our society is doing with communications? How is modern technology like smartphones, social media, and AI impacting the future as you see it?
Oh yeah. Weigh in on that.
Eric?
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah.
Eric, how many hours do we have? Let me think. I think that it's affecting us in negative ways for sure, in that our online communication deprives us of important cues that create empathy. So even from Sam's example earlier of when your wife comes on and people are leaving mean comments on the stream, that there's a sort of a lack of sense of, oh, there's a person receiving this. I see shifts in the convenience culture where we can order a pizza and make a note to leave it on the porch rather than interacting with the person dropping it off. That I think in some cases our lives are enriched by a little bit of friction of having to communicate with people in unexpected ways. I think that by and large people still find ways to connect with people close to them in meaningful ways. But I wonder about our ties in communities and with neighbors, those like looser connections. If we're able to do things through digital means, even like downstairs at the coffee shop, a lot of the students order their coffees online. And so I was standing today in line in person waiting to order, and I usually chit chat with the cashier about her kids and what they're doing. And they're all missing out on that opportunity. Of course, it helps for the cashiers that they don't have to listen to every person order, they just get the ticket. So I think the thing that we're missing out on the most are in lieu of convenience. With the self-checkout, you don't have to talk to someone. Ordering online, you don't have to deal with anyone, which can feel really nice, but I think it also makes us really lonely. I think it's really lonely to exist like that. I think that's probably too shallow of an answer.
It's a good start. It's actually a really, really nice summary. I think it's a cool start. As you were talking about the coffee shop, I was thinking, it's kind of funny. In Korea, I spend a fair amount of time in Korea, and I go to a coffee shop where everybody's using their phones. I mean, it's all done. Everything's online. It's automatic kind of thing. It's always quiet. It's so quiet. It's just quiet. There's no banter back and forth. There's nothing. And I realize, whoa, yeah. I appreciate the quiet, but that's not necessarily a good thing. Like, come on, especially on a college campus, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a major introvert, so I like the conveniences of not having, I'm allergic to chit chat. So it's really hard for me to want to engage in like quick, shallow conversations with people. But sometimes I think it makes me like less in tune with talking to my neighbors that can turn into meaningful ways, or paying attention to people that I see at the grocery store on a regular basis. That those could be really important ties, but I'm just too bothered, which I don't really want to be that person. So maybe I got to reflect on that a little. Well,
they are, and in a way, really, they are important ties, right? Because they're tiny links that ground us into community. And they're not, so like talking to the cashier up at the supermarket, yucking it up with the person. I don't even if I don't know the person, it's not a deep grounding of community and relationship, but it's a weak one. And when you have lots of weak ones, they become strong, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I first moved to Pennsylvania, I didn't know anybody. And I had acquaintances that I met through work, and I would go to yoga every Sunday. And I didn't really want to chit chat with anyone, but I just, faces became familiar. I knew that I was familiar to people. And I had this sense that, like, God forbid I, choked on my dinner on Saturday night. Someone would know, like, hey, where's that girl? Why isn't she here? That I was still connected to something through that.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways that's, I don't know. Eric, I'm so sorry. That's not a great answer, but it's an interesting question.
No, it's a very interesting answer. It's the beginning of, look, the question's huge. We could write a dozen books, and hundreds of books have been written on it already. But I find it's funny because, also one of the reasons I think I like to do the conversations that we have in my class, or I like to have them, is because I don't want to be the only one talking. I mean, people don't want that. Like, my students don't want it, for sure. And nobody would ever watch it if we turn the live stream on, So there's something about setting up a situation in which they have to talk to one another, and then they do. But listen, here's something. Let me hear you riff on this for a second. In the past, before cell phones were so widely available to people, in my class, you'd come in, we'd have music playing, and as we got closer and closer to the start of the class, we'd have to keep turning the music up, because the conversations that people were having were so loud. And now people come, they sit down, half of them have headphones on, and they're all on their phones, and nobody's talking. And I can turn the music up or down. It doesn't matter, because no one's really listening to it. They're all on their phones. And I think, whoa, okay. So what do you think? That can't be a good thing.
No, I don't think it's a good thing. I also don't blame anyone, because phones are built to be addictive. So the fact that this thing is capturing your attention and energy for, whatever amount of hours a day, I don't blame anyone for it. But I do think that the impact is real. And I don't know if you've ever read or heard of Jonathan Haidt's work. He wrote The Coddling of the American Mind, and then The Anxious Generation. And that one, The Anxious Generation, talks about what happens when we most of his research is on young people. I'm kind of hoping his next book is about adults, because we are not impervious to the influence of it. But when you put technology into the hands of young people, he calls it the great rewiring, that young people girls are looking at stuff that make them feel bad about their bodies. They're bullying each other. Guys are looking at porn. They're looking at video games that are changing the way they think about what they expect of people in the world. I think it makes us really, really distant from each other, and sometimes sort of distant from ourselves, that if you're never looking outward beyond the screen, you don't get to pause and reflect. You're not observing things around. We can't, it makes us unable to be bored, which is a really important experience. Yeah,
it's an important feeling. A couple of weeks ago, maybe it was last week, I don't know, we were talking about that in the book, and a lot of these books like this. And I said, look, I read these books, and I agree with everything in the book. I mean, it's what I see. Like, I'm like, yep, that makes sense. The research is pretty clear, etc. But I get to the end, and something tells me it's not that bad. I don't know. It can't be that. We can't be rewiring in that way. But I hear you say it, and I think about it, and I think that we are, but maybe it's just in my mind. I don't want to believe it. That maybe that's what it is. I just don't want to believe it. Or I've trained myself to look at the positive side of everything. So, because I have to, but it was I've gotten to a certain age in life, like, I just can't be negative anymore. I don't want to take my last breath and be having a negative thought on my last breath. So I try to just be positive at every waking moment. Well, that comes out in my teaching and the way I see the world and think about the world and think about things like this, but But then what that means is I'm missing some of the other stuff that I really need to be thinking about. So I hear what you're saying, and I would say, yeah, I think unfortunately, it's probably true.
I should probably have a dose of your optimism too. But I have plenty of pessimism to share if you need.
No, it's all right. It's all right. You're young enough that you can still like start pushing these things, you know. But
no,
I think I'm wrong. Probably at least half the time I'm wrong. So that I mean, I think what I find that I don't find much difference in the way students are able to communicate. When I sit students on the table these days, they're just as good as they're just as articulate and thoughtful as they were 30 years ago. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something else. And I think that I probably should put my attention more to the something else.
Yeah, but you might be right that if your students are able to articulate themselves with equal skill as they were, whatever amount of years ago, then that might be evidence that this isn't a great rewiring. But I would say if you looked at the hours of the average day of the student from 20 years ago compared to now, I think that there might be some shocking information about how much is spent consuming information coming from a variety of sources, many with no credibility and many meant to inflame.
Or right, both consuming information and just being entertained by things.
Or angered. I think a lot of it is meant to.
Oh man, it's true. Well, this we know, right? So this is one of the things that this kind of has come out again and again, but it gets buried all too quickly that all of these social media sites, they've recognized that anger is what hooks people in and what leads them to hit the click button, and to respond and click, click, click. It's the anger. It's not happy things, So
it kind of makes sense going back to the cancel culture thing, like why people are so eager to pile on in this like mob of anger. It's sort of a familiar emotion.
Yeah, and we're still in cancel culture, right? All they did was shift from the blue people to the red people. It's the cancel culture. It's the same damn thing. I mean, when I'm seeing now, it's like, whoa. This is the stuff that, a lot of you all think, you were pissed about 10 years ago. I talked about it in my class last week or whenever, this one particular janitor who got canceled or got fired for dropping the N-bomb. And he was black, and all he said to this student was fighting and kept calling him the N-words like over and over and over again. He's like, "Look, stop calling me that. Stop calling me that. Don't call me that." And finally, he said, "Don't call me." And then he said the word, and then he got fired because it was a school district that had a zero tolerance for that, right? And like, he got his job back in the end. The union got him his job back. But the point being, like, how would you ever fire the guy anyway? I mean, this is absurd. We've gone so far with this canceling. We set up these very strict guidelines for how we're going to cancel. Well, we're canceling again. Different people don't even realize that, like, well, you've jumped on the same bandwagon and you're canceling now. So.
Well, and sometimes it's a moving target. You've said this wrong thing. Well, I didn't know that it was the wrong thing. Well, we decided it was the wrong thing 3 seconds ago, and you didn't hear. Well,
yeah, you know what? That's right. I have that. That happens to me a lot, actually, that I don't, it catches up to me that something is like, whoa, I didn't know that,
Yeah.
When did that word become
and then once the popular term, it's changed to something else. And I think that the thing that I try and tell my students is to give, make generous assumptions that most people are coming from a place of curiosity, or if it's from a place of ignorance, it's not like a willful, I get to be ignorant because I don't care. It's just, I didn't know. It's okay. Ask their intention and then move forward, because quite often if you can say, well, I heard you say this, did you mean it to sound like something hurtful? No, I didn't know. Oh, okay.
Okay, see, I want to go back and say something here that I said earlier. You are my experience of the typical college professor. You have pretty good. Well, you have great communication with your students. I'm sure of it. Not all of us do. So, the average has pretty good communication with their students, right? You have really good, but nonetheless, you are thoughtful. You're trying to do the best thing. You're loco parentis. You're their parent outside of their home. You see yourself that way, right? Like, I got to be a role model here, and I got to hold things down, and I got to teach people, and I have to teach them, help them learn, really, more than teach. I got to help them learn, empower them to learn, and I'm going to question myself and do the best I can. And I think, damn, man, that's it's so nice having this conversation with you, because I feel like I want more and more people to understand that this is who we are in the academy. The vast majority of us, this is who we are. And stop with the memes and the caricatures of, it doesn't help. It doesn't help anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. That's nice. That's nice to think about. But the community that we're part of, it's a lot of really good, thoughtful people trying to give people the space to think through things and not be perfect and figure it out along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, who really take responsibility for these positions, and trying to do the right thing. So, like we've got at Penn State, we've got about 3,000 professors, I think, right? And so, that's a lot of people, it's a lot of people. And yeah, holy smokes. Hey, Jeff, is there another question for Katherine by chance? Or Elijah, maybe you have a question. You could just unmute your mic and ask it. Yeah.
Let me look through here because there's a bunch of questions. Are you able to go to the PowerPoint, Sam? I sent it to you in the group chat.
Yeah, I'll find it. Hey, Katherine, someone, the Philosophaster just asked a question. He said, how many people in the chat went to college and found it very biased toward the left? What was your experience in college?
Well, I started my undergrad at a Christian university in San Diego that was not biased towards the left. And I think the timing is also important. I started college in 2007. And then I finished at a secular university in Boston. And I think it was probably a little bit of a shift from a more conservative school in San Diego. But it didn't feel like, as a student, there may have been stuff going on in among the faculty, but I didn't, as a student, feel a sense of like any faculty that had an agenda.
I would say the same is true for me, absolutely. But there were more left things happening on campus among students. The left students were always more organized than more conservative students. Mm-hmm. Did you have that once you got to the secular school?
My experience there was quite strange. I was a commuter and I wasn't really involved in the on-campus community, but I went to graduate school in California in Davis, at UC Davis, which is really, really, really left. And so there was far more student activity that was reflective of that. And I think as a TA in the comm program, I taught public speaking classes, so I really wouldn't have had the opportunity. But the faculty, I imagine, if students were going to feel a bias, it was going to be a left bias.
I think right, and probably more students, if they had to give speeches or something in your class, let's say, they would give from some leftist. If they were going to argue about abortion, it was going to be abortion rights are important, not critiquing. I think that what I've seen here at Penn State over the years, for sure, is far more left activities and organizations and groups, by far. I used to do these events in class, like you would have to do out-of-class assignments, because so many things were happening all over campus, and people would want me to advertise in the classroom. And I finally said, you know what, I'm going to just make this a requirement. You have to go to a couple things. And I would just keep a steady list. And by the end of the semester, there'd be like, 100 different things that people could go to over time. And they were all sorts of things, right? If you read my Wikipedia page, you'll see that David Horowitz put me in his book for one of the 100 most dangerous professors in America. And dangerous meaning that I was a far left person, and I was trying to, mold the minds of my students from a leftist, anti-American perspective kind of thing, right? And my response to him, there was an article, someone interviewed me, and I said, well, yeah, I mean, his example was that I gave students credit for going to this like anti-oil talk or movie or whatever. I don't know.
How dangerous of you. Wow.
Anti-big oil, right? But my response was, someone interviewed me about that. And I said, well, yeah, but he didn't mention that I also gave students credit for going to his talk when he visited campus, you know? And was like, no, he didn't mention that, you know? But anyway, but what I remember at the time, I was always seeking events that were sponsored by really pretty much a handful of conservative organizations. In fact, I would reach out to them, and they knew that I was doing this with my class. And I'd say, anytime you guys have an event, make sure I know about it, because I will send students to it, you know. The left students, they were, I mean, my God, it was like this, you know, anti-racism this and anti-sexism that, and a feminist speaker from here, and an environmentalist speaker from over there. But you know, these were the student groups, man. And so you can't really put a group together and go sponsor events. But students were more to the left. They weren't being supported by faculty. These were just students themselves doing this. Yeah. So it wasn't like we were behind it, pushing. It's just, that's what it was. So I tended to, if I pushed anybody, I tended to push the conservative students to say, hey guys, come on, like, let's go. Let's
put something together.
Balance stuff out. But so anyway, Penn State definitely has leaned to the left, and faculty as well lean to the left, but the vast majority of us are in the center. And, you know, I don't know how much people push things in their classroom, but I feel like most people are like you and I.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. And I think it also depends on the audience that it's landing with, because if someone it seems like there are people who are, what did my friend call it? Eagerly offended. You know, they're like, looking for something to pounce on. That even the most balanced of perspectives, someone can find an angle to say, well, you didn't quite say it the way I wanted to hear it.
Are you kidding me? You must read the emails that people send to me. Like, oh my God.
You looked at me the wrong way. Yeah.
God, this, you know, like I remember, you know, like with the Charlie Kirk class, I got so many emails that were just, you know, overwhelming. It's just positive. Like, thanks for doing that. That's really great. Really appreciate it. You know, and I got this one email from this guy. It's like, you know, yeah, you did the class and it was really good. It's really important you did it. But, you know, but X. And he picked this one tiny thing that I said in the class as a joke, you know, and he's like, you shouldn't have said that. Your students, and this was it, like, your students deserve better from you. And I was like, holy shit, man. So I wrote back and I said, hey, listen, how you could have sent me the following email. And then I wrote out an email for him. I say, hey, Sam, I watched the class. Great. Really cool that you did that. Wow, that must have been tough to do. Like, in this really heated environment, that you take on the most difficult issue you could ever possibly imagine and risk your whole career on that, and you did it, and you did a really good job with it, etc. I have one bone to pick with you about one thing that you said, but otherwise, given the context of everything else, nice job. I'm like, you could have said that to me, and you didn't. And he wrote back, and he said, "You're right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I could have done that." And I wrote back, and I said, "Okay, thanks for hearing that." You know.
Well, it's nice that he heard you and that he sort of said, yeah. But I think it's like there's a way that things are weighted, that somehow that little teeny joke that didn't land with him became the more important thing than the whole lecture that was super effective and super useful.
Well, this is social media. This is what you're talking about. It's like we learn to go there. It's like, whoa, don't go there. You want to find that one. Everything was balanced except that one thing, you know, and that's what you had said. And
it's almost like there's some level of currency in being the first one to point out the thing that wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
To just say, oh, you know, I didn't love every single thing you said, but by and large it was really good. But it's like I get some type of dopamine hit by pointing out this thing that
Okay.
you failed at.
So you're a professor of communication, right? Do you hammer away at students on stuff like that? Like, do you really just
Stuff like that, like
the dopamine hit? What's the bullshit dopamine hit that you get pointing that out? Like da 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 da. Like, I mean, that's what I would say.
no,
but,
that didn't occur to me until just now. I was just thinking, what would motivate someone? Why would they want to differentiate themselves if you're getting, there's 100 nice emails and this is the one that gets your attention because he said this mean thing, that if he had just said this blanket statement of great lecture, thanks for going there, that maybe he wouldn't stand out to you.
Well, first off, I have to say, most emails I get, I don't even have time to open. So
Sure.
I wish I did. I'd love to. And what I find is that emails that are positive are often really long anyway. Like I'll click on it. I'll be like, okay, maybe I'll open this one. And then I click on it and it's really long. And then I unclick on it. And not because I don't want to, because first off, I'm grateful that any human being ever, you must have this, right? Anybody that would take their time out of their life to reach out. It's like, oh my God. Like,
I think I have.
Like, for me, that becomes like it's such I'm so grateful. Yeah.
This is the first folder in my file folder, and it's all my thank yous that students have written because it means so much.
Oh man, that's so cool. Hey, by the time you get to, I just cleaned my office out last year because we tore our building down and moved to new offices, and I didn't move. I don't currently have an office at Penn State, but I took my file folder home of the thank yous. Yours is pretty thin because you're young, right? But mine was about this thick, and I thought one day I'm gonna read through those. Yeah, they so matter. It's so, oh my God, but it is. But yeah, you're right. I mean, sometimes we think that people have the idea that maybe the edgy or angry thing will get the attention. Well, that's what we're kind of learning in a certain sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we see, the inflammatory stuff on a social media feed. That's going to garner attention. And
yeah. I try not to click on those things. I really do. And that's why I try in my class to be as positive as I can possibly be, because I know that students are getting so much negativity in the media space, right, on their phones. It's just like, come on, y'all. At any one moment, there's 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 airplanes in the air. At any moment, there's not air rage happening at every moment. Like it's very rare. So
that perspective is important. I got feedback from students who, I tend to be pessimist, like I said, and so I'm like, not so much the sky is falling, but I just want to point out, hey, we've got real issues. And I timed this lecture really poorly, that I talked about female genital mutilation, like right before Thanksgiving break, and the students were like, come on, can you give us something nice, please? And it's like, sometimes the nice stuff feels a little bit boring because I want the outrage because it seems to get people, but it's like, okay, you got to balance it out.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear. By the way, FGM is I talk about this often. It's the one issue I can't find anything positive in. And I've been working at it for many, many years. It's the only one that if I talk about it, it's like I got not a single positive thing to say. Anything else, just about I can find something. But yeah, you got it. You have to, I think we're in a different space now, that it's just really important that people see that the positive side of things. It's students, I'm finding with my students, so you can tell me about yours, but they're really afraid. They're afraid of climate. They're afraid of getting jobs. They're afraid of political and social breakdown. They're afraid of another COVID coming. There's so many things they're afraid of. And I'm like, okay, you're already afraid enough. And I need to. Yeah. Do you see that with your students?
Well, I think maybe a little. DeSales is a really unique place in the level of, it's not, well, how do I say this? It's, the people here are so nice. Sometimes it can be a little bit like Pollyanna-ish.
Oh, okay, I got you. I got
And
you.
maybe that's why I've course corrected to kind of be
Okay.
like shouting in their face with FGM
Okay.
before Thanksgiving, which is not effective.
Mm.
But yeah, there's a little, I think this, not that they're out of touch, but I think they err towards optimism, which is
Ah,
probably good. But sometimes I think, okay, wait, we've got to keep things realistic
okay.
here.
Okay, well, then I'm going to retract some of what I said, because I also think it's really important that people get challenged on some of these things. There
Yeah.
still are a lot of people in the, hundreds of millions of people that go to bed hungry every single night in this world.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many hundreds of millions of young children who are not in school, or 90 million, I think, kids under the age of 15 are not in school. Something, it's still very high. It's like, come on, y'all, we can do better than this. So, yeah, I think that's fair. Good for you. Yeah, good for you. Yeah,
Yeah. I think I will take a little bit of your optimism, though. That probably wouldn't hurt.
yeah. Well, we'll balance it out. Maybe I could do well to return to a little bit of more of the pessimism, or not pessimism, but like
At least
I
like
don't know,
some realism. Yeah.
realism. Yeah, I used to
Realism's not
hammer my students pretty hard on a lot of stuff, and like,
Can I ask you one more question?
uh-huh.
So when you were put on the list of 100 most dangerous faculty because you were perceived as having a left agenda, do you think there was any truth to that? Like when you look back on your career, do you see yourself getting better at being more maybe neutral or getting into topics in more kind of nuanced ways?
Yeah. Well, I should add that in the second edition of the book that he put out, he took me out of the book.
Okay.
Because because he came to understand that, like, I wasn't the reason he put me in the book is he visited campus. A conservative student group invited him to campus, and I was one of the faculty mentors of that group. So you understand, like, this is
okay.
a really right leaning group. I was one of their faculty mentors, And at the time that he put me in the book came out, I was also the Republican student organization asked me to be their advisor. Like, there were all sorts of things. I was like so involved. I was the faculty advisor to a student veterans organization.
Okay.
So, his thing was, I'm anti-American. I'm anti, I'm a hardcore Democrat, socialist, communist. And I'm like, dude, the Republicans are asking me to be their advisor. You know what I mean? But anyway,
I do want to add in.
He really learned about it when he
that wasn't just from the past. This is also recently. Sam still reached out to organizations regardless of what side. Just, hey, we would love to have you as our advisor. That's still happening now.
Yeah. Yeah. I still get that, but the point being, well, look, I'm a sociologist, right? So my job is really to try to understand. First off, sociology was built on, it emerged out of the sort of the Industrial Revolution and all the social problems that were created by industrialization. So, it's like everything in cities and, pollution and people and crime and poverty and people living together in dense conditions. Like, oh my God. So people wanted to really understand how to help resolve all these problems. Well, that's the emergence of sociology, right? So when you take sociology at a university, you start with Intro to Sociology, and the second course is often either social problems, right, or criminology, or it's just like hammering with the negative stuff. But that's what we do, right? We're trying to solve these problems. So for sure, I was more left, because at the same time, what we're trying to do is change the structure of the world.
Yeah.
And that's what we're always saying. Use the government. Let's make these changes. We can do this. Like, we need more tax money so that we can fix this problem, right? Well, that's just, it's sort of kind of built in some ways. So I'm not saying we're only left, but it's just sort of part of the perspective.
Set up to, yeah.
And so, yeah, for sure, I lean left, but I was always outside the box in that kind of way. Yeah. And at the time, I was actually even still a registered libertarian, right? Which is like, you can't get more far right than a libertarian. So I'm like, David, like, come
So
on.
what was he drawing from? Like, what did he see you doing that he thought was so
I was going to tell you a story. So he came to campus, and he was on the students invited him on this radio show, and it's a very conservative radio show. And so these students, they were great. They were really amazing. I would go on sometimes, and we had talks. And he was on the show, and he was making these comments about Cuba. And I'm a Latin American scholar, and I'm just like, dude, that's nonsense, man. So, and David Horowitz used to be way left. He was a democratic socialist, right? And then he took a turn to the right when he was probably in his early 40s. So I called in the show. I'm like, yo, hey, this is Sam. They're like, yeah, Sam, what's up? I'm like, look, David, you're way off base here. That's not at all what happened. I was in my office at the time. It was at night. I was getting ready to go teach a class. And then we got in this back and forth. And so we got off the phone. And so that was it. Like he knew who I was. So when he wanted to write this book of 101 most dangerous professors in America, he's like, oh, I got that guy at Penn State, so we'll just use him. And then what he did was he had one of his students, this guy, researchers who I later met, go through everything they could find on me online, get a copy of my syllabus, this, that, and they just picked out anything that could be left, right?
Left out all the other stuff to balance it out.
All the other stuff, like I gave students credit for going to see David, you know what I mean? Probably even listening to that radio show. Had I known he was on it, I would have said, hey, you could listen to this guy. You really need to listen to him. And my wife listened to him. He was on NPR or something, and he was being interviewed a few years before this. And my wife didn't know who he was. I didn't know who he was at that point either. But she said, wow, I listened to this guy on NPR, and he was talking about academia and how it shifted so far to the left. And it's totally, he's totally right on. He makes so much sense. We need to pay attention to this guy, right? So we became like fans of him, you know what I mean? And he threw me under the bus, but it didn't really matter because it's kind of fun to be one of the most dangerous professors.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And, that's a really good award to have, I think. That's
but so I don't tell people that he took me out of the book, but whatever.
You lost your spot. You need to do.
I lost my spot, man. I lost my swag, but it's okay. It's good. I don't. But anyway, I've always been outside the box, which is what even when Tucker Carlson when he did his 8 o'clock news hour piece on me, right? And it's like this guy. Penn State, the way Tucker does, like, fuck. And then I just get bombarded with hate emails. But the thing that the example he used was me giving a really anti-racism example. Like I was critiquing the left so hard. I was critiquing the anti-racist, like, the cancel culture people. And I said, my God, dude, if you'd have just taken Jeff made the video, right? If you'd have taken the whole section of the video instead of the little 20 seconds that you took, if you'd have taken the whole video out, you could have played it on Fox News and your viewers would have been like, oh, this is really amazing. This is good. These are the college professors we need. But you didn't do that. You didn't even bother to look at it. You just took the one little slice. It's like, that's so mean. It's so disingenuous, man.
That outrage draws people in, though. Why be happy if you're doing that? They want to be pissed.
God, it so does, man. It so does. It's really, it's sad. But you haven't had it because you're not public, right? So you don't. You don't have this.
No, sorry.
Well, hang on. Tell me what you've experienced. What have you experienced in your?
Well, I was just thinking. I mean, in reflecting back, I've been teaching for 10 years, and I look back, and sometimes I think, why was I saying that? Like saying stuff that I didn't believe because I was afraid, or even like really complex stuff. Even this last semester, I was teaching an intercultural communication class, and the first time I taught it was on semester at sea. So we were stopping in Malaysia and South Africa and Spain, and we had all of these like places to go to then reflect on. And then I'm teaching it in Center Valley, Pennsylvania, which is a little bit harder to get people out and about. And so I said, okay, well, we'll go to the local synagogue, we'll go to the local mosque, we'll go to a Quaker meeting, we'll go to a Hindu temple, and they had to do stuff on campus. And at the end of the semester, we're talking about ethnocentrism and ethno-relativism and universalism. And at the end of the semester, my students all turned in these papers that were, I love my students, they were so boring because they were only praising everything about all the religions, all the cultural.
Oh God.
And I thought, well, how did this happen? And it was my fault because I had been reinforcing this idea that we have to be accepting, to the point of they were afraid to say, like, nah, I didn't like going to a Quaker meeting and hearing this loosey-goosey version of God, or I didn't like sitting behind the men as a woman at the mosque, or I don't love the caste system, or whatever it might be. They didn't say any of that. And I thought, I failed them.
Yeah.
Because something I said made them feel like the only right answer was to blanket accept without any criticism.
Yeah.
And so I've reflected on that a lot and thinking, I have to do better.
So yeah, you're right. That's really cool that you saw that. By the way, it wasn't something you said, it was what you didn't say. And what you didn't say was offer any of your own critique of something. It's like,
well, that's very scary to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course you are, because this is the cancel culture world, right?
Yeah.
This is why people are afraid right now to say anything about anything, because now you can get canceled from the left or from the right.
Yeah, you don't know who's going to jump on you for what. Yeah.
And the thing is, but yeah, you're right. And so when students don't, we don't realize, you have to go through that a few times, right? Till you realize how frustrating it is when your students are just telling you what they think you want to hear. And you're saying, I don't want to hear what you think I want to hear. I want to hear what you actually think. And your students will say, here's what they're probably out in the world saying. I had this intercultural communication class, and yeah, it was cool, but in the end, I wrote this paper, and I just wrote what I thought the professor wanted to hear, because I know that's the only way I'm going to get an A. And meanwhile, you're going like, no, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that, Sam. That's really salt in the wound there.
No, but listen, it's actually really important, because I hear students say that a lot about, not a lot, but I hear them say it about certain professors. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think that's true. I actually don't think your professor only wanted to hear that perspective. I know professors, and I know that they want to hear what you actually think, but you think that, and then you go home and you tell your parents, and then you go home at the Thanksgiving dinner table and you tell your uncle, and then your uncle's at work yammering away about,
he's on Facebook,
professors. Yeah, on Facebook, but in fact, it's not true. And some people do want that. There's no question, right?
Yeah. And I think those people end up being, they somehow get a lot of power in all of this, that if a student has one professor that says, well, I don't want to hear about, the perspective on XYZ, then it becomes a representative for the rest of us, that it's just not true for the majority. Most faculty are wide open to hearing diverse viewpoints with good rationale. I don't care what you think. I just want to know that you have a good reason for thinking it.
Even if it's not good rationale. I mean, okay, it can't just be because I believe this, because I was taught this, so I believe it. But and I think we would agree on this. Like, yeah, you can be wrong in something you're thinking. That's okay. I'm wrong in my logic, but show me some logic, and then that's good. But what happens is people think if it's like this, especially like a social justice model, which has been true for so many years, that they don't have to provide any logic behind it. Well, of course the police are racist. It's like, wait, what do you mean, of course the police? I was asking a student the other, wait, how do you know the police are racist? Like, where'd you get that? Well, it was just like, well, of course they are. I'm like, well, how do you know that? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, these things have become truisms, and that to challenge it is to really deviate. I think I heard Peter Boghossian call it like the what did he call it? Like the moral orthodoxy, the reigning moral orthodoxy.
Yeah.
This is just the thing that these are now the truisms, and if you're not on board, you're some deviant. That just
Yeah.
to say, well, wait, why? Why do you think that? Oh, I
Yeah.
actually don't know. I don't have any evidence for that.
And even just asking the why would be like me. Wait, why do you think the police are racist? Where'd you get that from? Then I become the bad person because I'm saying like, well, I don't know. Like, how do you and a lot of us, it's hard to stand up to some of that. Although that's one of the very cool things I will say. There are a lot of, with every new administration, there's positive and negative. But with Donald Trump entering the political fray, one of the coolest things is really a serious challenge to this kind of these social justice assumptions. Of course, there's whatever, right? Of course, this is happening. It's like, well, hang on, man. I want to see something on that. I want to see some data. I want to see something. So I really do appreciate that. This thing of female genital mutilation, somebody heard me in class say that. I got nothing. It's my one issue that I've never been able to hear an argument for female genital mutilation, right? Someone watched the video, this woman, she's from East Africa. She wrote me an email. She said, I can tell you why. FGM's, it's fine. And I was like, okay, you're on, man. Go for it. And so I wrote back. I said, go for it. So she writes this long email. And I went and I wrote back and I said, okay, you didn't quite do it. Here, here's this. You didn't quite do it. But and then she wrote back. And then we had this correspondence back and forth. But I so wanted her to change my mind. I so wanted her to change my mind. Man, I was praying and hoping that she could come up with a good argument. And because I was like, that's the last thing for me. Like, there's nothing else. I'm like, change my mind, man. Let me Charlie Kirk you or whatever, whoever does it. I don't know. And, but she wasn't able to. She made a little bit of a dent in a couple things. But in the end, I'm like, nah, you didn't do that.
But I mean, it's cool that you've opened up these lines where people can say, hey, I want to talk about this idea with you without it devolving into name calling, or if you don't think the way I think, then you're hateful or you're a bigot or something. All right, this is why I think the way that I think. Okay, I don't agree. All right.
Yeah.
That's
for sure. No, for sure. And I think it's important for all professors to have that, for sure. Yeah. No, I want to be smarter than what I am. Every day I want to be smarter than what I am. And I want my students to be smarter than what they are. So like, why wouldn't I be open to something that I don't? Maybe Tylenol in pregnancy. Fuck, I don't know. I'm going to do I don't know. Like, I don't talk about things a lot that I don't know anything about, but I don't know. Whatever. I mean, I know there are people who I'm sure are listening or, they're thinking like, oh, okay, here, Sam, let me send you all the research on it. Okay, that's fine. I'm sure. Yep. But I'm just trying to be a good role model. And so are you. I mean, what I'm hearing from you is so are you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you don't have the knowledge on something, at least you have the experience and the wisdom to say, let me look into it. Let me wait and see.
But it's hard, right? Like, how much time do you have to do all the research you need to do on all the things that you don't know anything about?
Well, yeah, because there's so many things I don't know. Like I have a lot of languages to learn, a lot of books to read, a lot of things to do. I want to know it all. It's going to be hopefully a long life so I can have more time.
That semester at sea, you're stopping at these ports and like you're barely touching the cultures. Yeah. And yet you said that, hey, well, we're going to do our best to at least skim a little bit. Awesome. Good for you, man. That's so awesome. You gave them a real gift in that.
Yeah, I hope so. It was
No, for sure you did. And
I didn't. The program, I mean.
Yeah. Well, yeah, okay, you have that. Yeah. I was asked years ago, back in probably 95, if I wanted to teach semester at sea, and we thought about it, and then in the end, my wife and I, in the end, we took a sabbatical to Eastern Europe. But
well, if the opportunity comes knocking, shoot me an email. I'll give you the inside scoop on things.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, right.
I did it as a student. I did it as a student in 2009, and it was so life-changing. So I had certain expectations. Yeah. It was one of the more challenging semesters of my career, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'll bet. Like both two things, right? One, being cooped up with all those people in a very small environment. And then number two, visiting all these places and having to be really on the go.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff. Katherine, just stay on. And now you're in it if you have time. Jeff,
I'm in it. I'm loving this.
All right. Okay. Let's respond. Do we have any other questions from the stream itself today that we could respond to?
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and start on slide number 8.
All right.
Katherine, if you are able to pull up the stream and mute the audio, you'll be able to see all the questions as I'll put them up. We'll start with Hog Wild's £5 super chat.
Oh, man, that's a really good question.
I can't see it. I don't know what you're looking
at. Yeah, here, I'll read it to you. It says, saying, like, how can liberal teachers see the conservative view? And how can conservative teachers see the liberal view? Well, first off, Hog Wild, the first place to start is to know there are many, many different views, right? But secondly, if you lean one way, just do the best possible job that you can understanding the best empathic ideas of the other side. That's what I would say. And find out, like, for me and myself, I am very much I have all these really conservative tendencies and I have these liberal tendencies. So Katherine, I have both. I see somebody breaking a law somewhere, breaking a rule, and I'm just like, stop that person, like, there's an order here. We need order, and you are breaking the order, and that's a problem. And I need to stop that, because society works best, communities and groups work best when everyone follows the rules. That's my conservative side. And then the other side is like, yeah, come on, man, that person, okay, even if they didn't fully do their best or whatever, hang on, let's step in and just help out. Let's make a change here. And it's not really fair, but it's okay. Like, whatever. I don't know. Whatever that is, I don't know. That's my answer to that question. Find out the part of you that leans in a certain direction, and make sure that you feed both of those sides, so that they're both equally as strong, so that you have a kind of a knee-jerk tendency to be able to understand them. Well, how would you answer that?
I think I'm thinking of like the kind of speech and debate part of my brain, that if you're on a debate, you have to be prepared for the pro and the con argument, and poke holes in your own argument and ask questions. What are my assumptions? Why do I think that way? And look for all the evidence for why you shouldn't think that way. It could end up, strengthening the final conclusion, or at least opens you up to different perspectives. I think also, don't polarize everything. Yeah, like, what's the commonality that probably exists in most spaces? Because that's where change and conversation can happen, rather than it sitting on either side of a pole. That there's, I was really, really touched by people's response to Senator Mike Lee put a proposition into the big beautiful bill about selling off public land, federal land, and I'm from Nevada. We've got a lot of public land there. And it brought together crunchy granola lefties and super right hunters together to say, we all want this land, whether we're out there shooting elk or we're out there, sketching a sunrise or whatever. We want this land together. And it felt like one of the rare wins where people saw that this wasn't just a left or a right thing. There's a lot of commonality. And I think that's true of a lot of the things that people disagree on, that regular people are in the middle. So poke holes in those arguments, and then also find the central tendency.
Yeah. Well, my wife would give you a big high five on that one. Yeah. For sure. In fact, she just gave me an example today of something that one of our former students, but her former students was involved in, that brought people together just like that, in this political space. And this politician who she met with today, who's a fairly significant politician here in Pennsylvania, he said he gave my wife kudos. He said, that's your win. You did that because you taught him how to do that.
That's awesome.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, Hog Wild. There we go. Jeff, what do we have next?
Another £5 super chat from History Reset. Thank you very much, History Reset. And then
hang on. Here's.
And then Maria also became a
here's
member.
G from Seoul, South Korea. G was my former partner in crime in Social 19, and he's saying,
"Oh, sorry, you guys couldn't hear me on the call. There were 2 super chats, or there was another super chat, and then there was a membership from Maria. So I thanked Maria as well on the stream, but I had myself muted on Discord. But yeah, go ahead with the question from G.
Yeah, so G's saying, G-Dog, as it would be, how would y'all as scholars avoid surrounding yourself solely with like-minded people who concede rather than challenge?
Oh.
Man, okay, so first off, how do we avoid surrounding ourselves with like-minded people? Let's start right there for a second. That's a tough thing because these are your colleagues. You have colleagues. You're probably in a very small department. My department's much larger, is like 60 people or something. But first off, you got to get along with your colleagues. So you can't have these really challenging conversations like people everywhere. People don't fight about these things at work. They agree to not talk about stuff, right? So that's one thing. It's very difficult. And to not surround ourselves with like-minded people and people who concede and don't challenge. Well, that's another side, right? Okay, let me say this.
That's a totally different piece.
Yeah, because especially in academia, like people that, we have tenure in the academy because, once you get tenure, you can then challenge things. But I don't hear tenured people. But you learn not to challenge. That's the way you get tenure. Like, you don't want to be a thorn in the side of the administration and your colleagues and so on, right? So you got to be kind of really toe the line, so to speak. And then once you finally get tenure, if you do, I don't have tenure, but if you do, then it's been beaten out of you. It's you know what I mean? You've learned to not challenge anything. So challenge stuff. I don't find academics being very challenging at all, actually. Yeah. I don't know what your experience is.
Well, I mean, I have tenure, but before I had tenure, I don't think that I'm at a Catholic school, and I've had experiences at secular schools. I grew up Catholic, but I am not super Catholic myself. So I was a thorn in the side of people along the way, and I was willing to risk it. There were things that I thought were worth saying. So the things being beaten out of me were not, it was different. And now the question of how do you surround yourself with people who are willing to challenge instead of concede? Frankly, my question right now is, how do I become the person that's willing to challenge and not concede? So that's where I'm at. I've been swallowing things for too long that I think it's like I want to start saying that before I start shouting them from the rooftop like a crazy person.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. See, I'm finding myself actually. Yeah, I don't know. That's really interesting. Yeah, I like that. I like that answer. G-Dog, thanks for the.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I find that I am surrounded by people who are different from me. In making friends with the staff at the university, it's often a very different perspective than faculty. I also, have friends outside of the academy, so that's helped broaden things. But if you're only willing to concede as a person, then it doesn't matter who you surround yourself with. You're the problem.
Yeah.
I'm saying to myself.
Yeah, and I don't know, I don't know any. I mean, the challenge. I don't know. I guess in a way, I'm challenging my student. My job is to challenge my students. And I guess I'm doing that every day just by asking them to think for themselves. Right. So that's about as much as I'll take. Maybe that's the best that I can do. Maybe that's all I need to do. That's good. Okay. Here's another question. This is actually an interesting question from Bippy. With a $5 super chat, man. Like, oh man, God. By the way, Catherine, we do raise money on the stream, but the money goes back into producing the stream. It costs a lot of money, man. Like, oh my gosh. And we don't make that much. We don't make very much. Like, this is one of those things that people have these ideas. That you got these YouTubers that are making $1 million or whatever. I was like, dude, that is not. We'll make a video, we'll make $1.37, right?
Oh, yeah. True labor of love then.
Oh man. Okay, so it says, how close do you feel we are to actual civil war with citizens using violence going up against the government with the whole Charlie Kirk thing? I feel we are close, and I'm afraid as a citizen of the United States. Do you I can respond to this first, and then you can go.
Yeah, please. I need time to think.
I go back. I vacillate. I go back and forth. We're actually going to do a class on this on Tuesday. We have 4 guests coming in, 4 people who are friends of Social 19. All 4 have spoken in. 3 of the 4 have spoken in Social 19. So, Bassem from Iraq. David from Ireland, Northern Ireland, Julie from Colombia, and then a new friend and colleague, Susan from South Africa. And the 4 of them, we're going to have a conversation about this very issue, but less so about the U.S. and more so about what happened in their countries, their societies, when things really started to break down in a serious way, and did break down. I vacillate, Catherine. Part of me feels like, oh my gosh, we're close, and then the other side of me says, hey, hang on, everybody thinks that we're always thinking that, like, things are much worse than they are. And it's kind of like it was either Plato or Socrates, one of them, say, the youth of today will be the downfall of civilization. Like, all right, well, we're still saying that. So part of me feels, I've been studying this for a long time, war and conflict and so on. I did for my PhD, my sub area of interest was social conflict and revolution. So it was like really a thing that I spent a lot of time thinking about. So I vacillate. Part of me is really afraid, and the other part of me says, no, it's okay. We're gonna get through this. Yeah. And the part of me that says that may be the part of me that really wants to be optimistic, but I also could go off on why I think that. There are a lot of reasons, but I don't know. What are you seeing?
I mean, I think I don't know. I'm a comm studies scholar. If I had my history professor friends here, I would say, come in and take this question for me. 'Cause I don't think I don't feel good about what's going on. But sometimes when I'm like being too online or too in the muck with things, I like to like go to the grocery store and pay attention that people are fine. Yep. Just to remind myself to not be in a panic. I just don't think I have the knowledge to give a good answer.
Yeah. That's okay. That's a great academic answer. Yep. And I have a lot to say on this because I've been thinking about it for my whole academic life. 40 years ago, I started putting a book together. I worked with my advisor. I was 24 years old. I started putting a book outline together about this very issue. And then I collected, this is way before computers and so on, right? I was collecting all sorts of materials, and I had ended up with a big file drawer full of material. And when I cleaned up my office this past summer, I threw it all out because it was irrelevant at that point anyway. But I was reminded, wow, I was going to write a book about this, and I never did. So anyway, I have been thinking about it, but it's too complex for me to answer in a really thoughtful, smart way. But But I will say that on Tuesday's class, we will have these 4 guests who are going to give us some thoughts about what happened in their societies. And I think it's really cool. They're all really thoughtful people. Yeah, we'll hear from them. Okay. How different? Here's the one from Blue Dog. A question. How different is the climate on campus? Let me just ask you this about your campus. How long have you been at DeSouth?
10 years.
10 years. So let me ask you this. How different is the climate from 10 years ago with regard to student sensitivity on one hand and support from the administration on the other?
Let's think. I think that there seems to have been in the first 5 years that I was here, I don't think that it would even have registered. I didn't feel a sense of concern or worry that someone was going to take a, bite-sized chunk of a lecture and file a complaint or something. Maybe in my 6th to 8th year, there felt like a really high sense of, man, someone's looking for a fight. And in the past couple of years, admittedly, I was on sabbatical on semester at sea, which was not representative of what it is like here. And last fall, I was in Rome with a group of students for the semester. So I've been kind of taken out of it. It seems to have settled, at least on my campus, but it feels like it's ramped up elsewhere where I've gone to conferences or I've seen calls for papers. And I just get a sense of there is a right thing that you have to think. And if you don't, there's going to be a backlash. So I think student sensitivity seems to have tapered, but there's an overall awareness of some larger sensitivity happening in the culture. As far as my administration, it's really stayed steady. It's a Catholic institution, and they've never tried to impose any type of control over what I said, whether it was in my gender comm class. I did some research on campus about student sexual behavior and safer sex practices. They were totally supportive. I've gotten complaints for small things, but on both sides, and the administration has been supportive. So I haven't felt that fear here in a couple of years, but I feel it more broadly.
Yeah. That I think I could say a similar thing. I think that for a while, so even going back, probably starting about 20 years ago, I think students that's when cancel culture started to really emerge in a different kind of way. With the use of these phones, right? It was in the early 2000s that people were really started to have phones. They were more widespread. I remember because I came back from Spain and we had a flip phone in Spain. And then I came back and we went, well, are we going to buy a phone here? And that was in 2001. But I feel like, there's far more students are reporting the thoughts of their parents more than them. Like there's a heightened sensitivity, but students are able to talk about the conversations they're having with their families and their parents. Before it was say 10 years ago, it was just inside of campus, like the culture of campus. And their parents, if they had gone to college, and certainly here at a place like Penn State, lots of parents have gone to Penn State. That's why the kids go here. Parents didn't have any idea that any of this was happening, the cancel culture kind of stuff. So, but I would say maybe in the past 5 years or so, parents have a much more heightened awareness of some of the stuff that's going on. So they create a certain kind of tension with students, or at least they tell their kids, hey, be aware of that, be thinking about it. And I think that has happened. But definitely the left cancel culture kind of stuff has definitely decreased. And that's I
think people were like, we can't keep doing this.
Yeah. Well, also kind of, I think President Trump, there's a way in which he just said stop, man, just stop. And oh, all right. So I'm not, as someone who's in the middle of who's been targeted so much, not so much. I haven't been targeted that much. I want to be really clear. Just a few things here and there. For me, it's a little bit welcome, but I still get things, here and there. But yeah. But now it's more from all angles, so it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, damn, what can we say? Anyway, that's what. And support from the administration here at Penn State, I've always received a lot of support from the administration, from the president on down, even when they were getting phone calls one after another. Because thank you, Tucker. I got a lot of support from the administration because I've built trust over the years, and people understand me and they know me. Kind of like David Horowitz, when he found out about me, the more you learn, the more he's like, well, actually, you're doing everything that I think professors ought to be doing. I said, thank you very much. Yeah. So that's kind of wild. All right. What do we have here? Do you want to do adventure arc? Oh man, that's such a tough one. I don't know if whatever. Yeah, here. Let's do that one. Let's do the adventure arc. So I don't know, Catherine, if you have the stream on, if you can see this.
No, I just see you and Jeff.
Okay, all right. I'll read this then to you.
Okay.
Is saying, how do you feel about the people who have been celebrating or downplaying Charlie Kirk's assassination? And what I say about that is, well, I think I've never been one to make jokes about terrible things that have happened to people. Like I don't joke about that. Those things. I do humor. I used to be I worked as a stand-up comic when I was in my early 20s. So
I love that.
When you do stand-up comedy, you're used to just going after. I became an iconoclast, right? You sort of go after things that people hold dear and true to their hearts. Like, that's what comics do. But when you do it on the comedy stage, you can work there. Comics can seem really insensitive, man. Oh my God. But it's different, right? Well, I was never super insensitive because I'm a fairly sensitive person, but nonetheless, right? But the few times I would do it in class, I would just very quickly it didn't work. So I realized, what, that's that. And then I just changed over the years. So I don't make jokes about terrible things that happen to people. God, it's just terrible. And as you get older, you don't want to do that. Anyway, so I don't, it's sad. It's unsettling. It's unsettling when I see anything in media, people making jokes about terrible things. When there's a terrible car crash, and it shows up in this video on Reddit, and the video is tagged funny. I'm like, dude, there's nothing funny about that fact that motorcyclist ran into the back of the car and did 5 flips in the air and landed on their head. Like, that's not funny. And so that just seems incredibly disturbing to me. So when I see anything like that, I feel disturbed. And what I do say, so Catherine, I'm going to say this, that, there are a lot of people who are really upset by people who make jokes now, but you got to be upset when people make jokes about anything. And that's the thing. So you can't, and I think that what's happened sometimes is maybe that when things hit home for people, it's like when it's their own family, they realize, hey, it's actually not funny that thing happened to that person, because that happened to my sister or my brother, or my grandmother, and then that's when people have a moment of clarification. So that's the first thing I would say about that stuff for me. Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I echo most of what you said. It's unsettling when to see people respond like that, but it is within a broader pattern of people doing it. So it's wrong no matter what. It's not like this time it's wrong. It's wrong every time. And I think that the way that we're desensitized, like you said, people thinking that people getting hurt or violence is funny, or the way that, that you could have been kind of like accidentally exposed to the video of him getting killed. it's not normal to see violence like that. It's just not
No, not
normal.
at
It's not
all.
good for us. It's not normal to be desensitized to violence. And it seems, curiosity gets the best of people and they want to see it. But to joke about it just, that's kind of like a hard no for me on anyone, regardless of what they say, whether I like it or not, or know them, don't know them. It's just not, that's kind of like, that should be off limits in my mind. But I think the fact that people were making light of it or joking about it speaks to a state that we're in that is troubling.
Yeah, disturbing. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think the fact that people are being called out for it is actually pointing a mirror back at us as a culture to say, hey, y'all, right? This is not cool. And and don't do it. And maybe this is kind of what's interesting is, and I keep saying this, different sides of the spectrum are holding that mirror up to one another. It's like, hey, that's not cool. Like, hey, well, that's not cool either. And like, none of it's cool. So maybe we learn from one another to say, hey, let's stop it.
Yeah, or if, you see how uncool it is now because it's someone that you felt some sense of affinity towards. Well, if there's a next time and it's someone that you don't have that same connection to, it's still wrong.
You know what? One of the cool things for me, the sensitizing things for me about teaching such a large class and also teaching online, having people watch, everything I could imagine, any example I could possibly imagine, it's happened to somebody in the class. So, like I no matter what it is, if I say like, hey, so somebody, give an example, somebody got really, really drunk and they passed out and they were seriously injured after having passed out and been drunk. And I, make any kind of light of that. Like not even light, not even a joke about it, but just use it. As often as not, somebody will come up to me after class and say, hey, that actually happened to my roommate, or that happened to my sister, and my sister's kind of paralyzed from the waist down or something, and I'm like, whoa, damn, good thing I didn't go that little extra step and make some kind of joke, right? And so I've trained myself, and it's been good because it has interwoven itself into my whole life, my day-to-day, not just in the classroom, but everything has happened to somebody. In the kinds of, you can't imagine the kinds of things that someone after class comes and says, hey, that happened to me.
I think that that's important to be aware of, but I think it also, it can move down a slippery slope into like where sometimes people, they're cherry picking for something to be mad about. So if I say like, oh, I took a flight and there was this really, person that was being really annoying because they were serving peanuts on the plane and they were worried about the peanuts and whatever. And someone comes up and, well, I have a peanut allergy. I'm like, relax. This wasn't about you. There's a way to hijack someone's intention as a means of.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Like,
so you can't take it on either. Right? Like,
every little thing, you say like, oh, I had a banana for breakfast. Well, some people don't have breakfast. Well, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that right now.
Yeah, that's how far. That's where this sort of, right. That's where some of the kind of social that's one of the memes of the social justice left. You just like, oh my God, stop! I can't even breathe. Well, somebody can't breathe. I'm like, whoa, shit! I can't. I can't. My heart can't beat anymore. It's like some people need a new heart.
Or you use a turn of phrase and someo's like, well, okay, that's not where I was.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. Mostly, thank God for me. Thank God. It's like, well, some of us don't have the opportunity to believe in God. Like, oh shit, all right. Anyway, I have mostly been just immune to a lot of that. I don't know why. Like I am like kind of Teflon. Things will kind of roll off me, but it's tough, man. That peanut allergy one's perfect. That's so perfect. Like, oh my.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, I want to tell this story, but I don't want to offend any people with peanut allergies. Like, okay.
Yeah, you can go. And then that's the offend side, right? It's like,
Yeah.
dude, stop being so whatever. Come on, man. For me, one of the things, because I have this kind of gritty person, I can have a gritty person. Well, that's also my stand-up side, that I'll just be like, hold on a second, man. And I'll just come right in with a joke and a little bit of self-deprecation, which is always necessary to get people to understand. So anyway, and at this adventure arc also asked, what do we think about how the people are contacting people's employers?
I think,
and I would say,
I actually think you already mentioned this in class number 7. You talked about the line and where is the line. I thought for anybody, so for adventure, if you want to go back to watch the beginning of class number 7, I think Sam perfectly at the beginning of class explained the response to this part of the question.
Yeah, that's right. That's the slippery slope thing.
Yeah.
Where do you? Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I looked at the left contacting people and now the right contacting people, and it's like, okay, hang on a second. Yeah, that's cool. All right, hang on. We got one. Do we have one more? Yes. Philosophaster is asking about whether we're familiar with Jonathan Haidt's the research on the strong ideological bias. Yeah, for sure. The ideological bias for sure, and strong in some areas. The hegemony of the system and its culture. Hegemony. And I am familiar with the Heterodox Academy. Penn State has a chapter of the Heterodox Academy, and I'm not an active member, but I'm on the email list because a good friend of mine, a colleague of mine, has started our chapter here. And
what is that?
And my wife and I are like, he was the first people when he wanted to start the chapter. Like we were the first 2 people that he contacted. Yeah.
What is?
Are you familiar with Heterodox?
No.
You should look it up. Heterodox Academy. Can someone just put in the chat? Can someone put the link to the webpage for Katherine? She'll grab it. Well, you'll find it. Enter Heterodox.
Yeah, I can Google it. That's fine.
Yeah. So, just people. It's really for people like you and I. And again, this is, I think, clearly the vast majority of academics, but people don't even sometimes recognize they're doing it, who are just trying to be heterodox. We're trying to be the fish that swims upstream a little bit, trying to resist some of the impulses the impulses to follow and to not stick out and to follow.
And give space for students to learn how to do that.
Yeah, not question. Yeah. So, I think it's hard, man. It's hard, isn't it? It's tough. I mean, on one hand, we have a really people think like, oh, we have such a cushy job, but it's also to do it well. It takes a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be cushy if you just want to sort of sit back and flow. People can do that, but it wouldn't feel good for me to do it like that.
Yeah. Same here. In fact, I every day I wake up and Lori and I, we say like, God, what are we doing, man? Why are we? Do we need to do this? We like think about some of these beaches around the world we've been on or whatever, and like, we could. Yeah.
I know. I often have said like, oh, maybe I want to retire early. I'll start saving more aggressively. And my boyfriend will be like, and then what are you going to do? You're going to be desperate to go do some work and read some stuff and talk. You just can't. I wouldn't do well on a beach for too long. Yeah.
Hey, completely. Hey, here's a question I want to bounce out to you. This is slide number 16, Stevens. So, Katherine, I want to hear what you think about this. I have this idea that students by far and away lean left because when they come of age and they start learning about the world's problems, So Stephen's asking this, right? They start learning about the world's problems and they're just like, come on, man, we got to solve these problems. They're not jaded or they're not, it's like, come on, let's go fix it. It's like, I watched this video of this little girl who gave her lunch to a homeless guy. And she, she's like 4 years old and clearly.
I can't hear you anymore.
Oh, wait, I'm back. All right, there we go. All right. Anyway, she gave her lunch to her dinner or lunch to a man who was homeless. And I just think people are, when you're at a certain youth age, we have this optimism and you're like, okay, let's go. So people then will lean toward identifying with groups who are out trying to solve these problems. Like, well, look, first off, the essence of conservatism also is to try to solve the problem of all of these things, whether it's hunger or homelessness or whatever. But the idea is we don't learn true conservative thought, and then it gets mischaracterized as people that are very selfish and individualistic, and you're missing it, right? But nonetheless, students, they first sort of encounter this, and then they're in all these social justice organizations to fix some problem. And then it gets characterized as being on the left, even though, look, it's not really on the left. They're just out supporting animal rights, but it gets seen as this sort of crunchy lefty thing, but nonetheless, right? So I often say that, well, students, they lean this way because that's what you do when you're younger. And he's asking, what do you think about that?
Can you reread? I still can't see the slides. Can you tell me what the question is, just so I have the context?
So the question is like the statement that students are more liberal and to the left. Do you think it's because most students, this is the first time away from home, and this freedom helps promote, something that's unique? And I add on, it also promotes a desire. You sort of start to discover, in many ways, the first time, some of the problems in the world, and people want to go out and solve them because that's what humans want to do, is solve problems.
Well, yeah, and maybe if the solving problems and being sensitive to problems is framed as being exclusively left-leaning, that there's more social reward with behaving in that way. That if the opposite of that is to be seen as callous or, having some like conservative ideas is seen as the antithesis to progress, then maybe there's like a social reward with that is more prominent on college campuses, especially if there, like you said, there's more student groups related to left-leaning things. If the faculty tend to lean left, then, conformity is a really powerful tool. So if the way that I can feel that I have purpose and belong, it's through this one route, then everyone kind of gets funneled through the same thing. But I have to say, my perspective, at least being at a Catholic campus, is it's not predominantly left. Maybe it is as far as student attitudes, because they're not all Catholic. It's a Catholic university, but it's probably 50% Catholic and then a mixture of everything else. And they are in a position, maybe in other cases, if they're pushing away from what their familial kind of narrative has been, if they're coming from more conservative families, then maybe this is an opportunity to step out of that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really interesting. So for me, I remember, like when I read Reason magazine, which is one of the main libertarian magazines, and there's an article about hunger. We got to solve the hunger issue, right? Well, the arguments, it's a very thoughtful argument to solve hunger, right? But it gets characterized in this kind of callous way. It's like, well, just throw, whatever. We're going to. It's easy to say we can solve hunger by just feeding people, right? It's much more complex to say, wait, hang on, we can't just feed people, because we're not solving hunger. You gotta go the next step. And so the libertarian argument would like walk us through the next steps, right? And would be a classic conservative argument. But it's much easier if you're like, 18 years old, well, we just need to feed people, so let's go. So it's less complex, it's less complicated. And I think that a lot of times, I think students will just go toward that. Let's fix it right away.
Well, and if they have limited options, if their faculty are at all left leaning and they're presenting ideas from that, it might seem like, well, this is the only route to get there, that I don't see a way to address the problems that I want to solve
Yeah.
through a different strategy or with a different
Yeah.
perspective in mind. So, okay, I want to, feed the homeless, but it has to be couched in this kind of left way of going about it.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
That's right.
I'm not really buying what I'm saying on any of this. I have to think about it a little longer.
That's good though. It's good. It's nice. That's what thinking out loud. I do a lot of thinking out loud in office hours for sure. And so I don't like to be held to any single thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
I like your answer. It's very thoughtful. All your answers are very thoughtful. By the way, if you did, I don't know if you just joined. This is Katherine Grasso from DeSales University in the southeast corner, small Catholic university in southeast Pennsylvania. So, here's cognitive. We kind of talked about this, but I'd like you to hear what you say about it. Cognitive dissonance is asking this question: do teachers who are minorities, so women and people of color, so that's you, right, have additional perception of pressure, at least to be unassailable, which leads to distance?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's additional pressure. And this goes back to the kind of the first thing that we were saying about being liked, that
Mhm.
I often feel like there's an expectation, and I might be putting some of this on myself because I've also learned, what it means to be a woman and the kind of the dichotomy of being a smart woman and what the expectations are. I do feel a high level of pressure, mostly from myself, but I've probably learned it from experience, to be liked, to be nice.
Mhm.
That has to
Mhm.
be the baseline. And then I can be tough, but there always it has to be against the backdrop of being nice and liked, and also pressure to be like, I say pretty, but not in like the traditional I look a certain way, but kind of like delicate and not imposing. And I look at some of my male colleagues. In fact, I was talking to one yesterday, and he really is like a no nonsense guy, and he really cares about the students, but he doesn't sugarcoat things, and he just tells it like it is. And most people take it like, okay. And I just feel very envious of that, because I think if I
Yeah.
said to people, hey, what you're doing isn't working, we got to take a different course, I can't. Maybe I should
Yeah.
try and just see how it goes. But I feel like it has to come with a side of like cool aunt or nurturing mom or sweet sister.
Yeah.
There's all of this
Yeah.
stuff that has to happen. And even like I think you were talking about the paper that shows how women are held to different standards than men in faculty roles. Oftentimes we're held to roles that aren't even relevant to the job.
Yeah. 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 That's
That
right.
what does it matter if
Right.
I'm,
Like, hey, we're having a faculty meeting. You're gonna bring the cupcakes,
cupcakes.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
You're gonna
Yeah.
take
I got
notes.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all throughout. Listen, what I want to say is, so you and I, for me, for sure, and it sounds like I'm listening to you, and I'm like, a lot of people who really, there's this kind of knee-jerk reaction against like a kind of a feminist statements like the ones that they're perceived as feminist statements like the ones that you just made. I don't perceive them as feminist. I perceive them as statements that emerge out of this grounded theory, that emerge out of experience. That's what I see in the world. I'm not overly sensitive at all, nor is my wife, by the way, in any way. But yeah, we see this. Oh my God,
Yeah, and I don't fear it being perceived as feminist, but I don't want it to sound like a chip on my shoulder or this burden that I carry,
yeah.
that I'm resentful about it. It's probably made my relationships with my students better, that I am cognizant of this is a person and I have to be kind to them versus, they're taking up my time and I have stuff to do. I'm okay with being nice, but it is a challenging thing to think, if I wasn't so nice, would they still respect me? It's like kind of a hard question to think about.
No, that's right. And no, I think the data are pretty clear. It's like, no, they wouldn't respect you in the same way, and you would get complaints more so. We know that.
And I've gotten feedback from students on evals that they don't like my voice, or they don't like my hair, or they don't like my clothes. And like, I guess I could change my hair and my clothes, but I can't change my voice. What am I supposed to do about that? It's like, but I'm not, that's not to say that I'm sure men have also gotten useless feedback that it's
For
personal and
sure. No
hurtful. So
question.
I don't think I'm like this, the women are unique in the burdens that we have as faculty. I think that men probably have other things they do that women don't have to do. But I know from my experience, I do think that being liked feels like a precursor to respect, and that's a hard pill to swallow.
You know what? Your answer right there, your response, everything you said in the past few minutes has been gold. Honestly, I can't really. It's so balanced and so thoughtful, and wow, yeah, it's gold. And if there's anyone watching who feels like, oh my God, she has some kind of chip on her shoulders, you don't want to hear. You just missed it. You're missing it because there are things that we just don't see. We don't understand. It's like there was an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, and this guy he's like, yeah, I'm college educated, white collar guy. I don't know. He does some business administration thing or whatever. He drove from, I think, Connecticut or New Hampshire down to Florida in a car with a friend. I think it's a friend. I don't think it was a girlfriend who happened to be white. And they got stopped 14 times. And I saw it, Ask Me Anything. It's like, well, hang on a second. I mean, what? I saw it and I just moved on, and then I went, a couple hours later, I went, dude, hang on a minute, man. The guy's just like, yep, I got stopped. We got pulled over 14 times, right? And I said, in my first thought in my mind is like, okay, come on, dude. Come on, man. Like, whatever. No, come on, right? Me, I mean, I study the police. I'm like, and then a couple hours later, I went back and I said, hang on, you got to go look at that carefully. And so I started reading and I read his answers and I thought, wow, this guy sounds so thoughtful. He can't be making this up. And I'm like, well, no, he could be, but it doesn't sound like he is. 14 times, right? And I'm like, whoa. Then I've been dealing with race relations for 35 years. Right? I've been teaching Social 19 for 35 years. And I'm like, so I wanted to reach out to him and be like, yo, man, I need to talk to you. I need to really know, are you making this up? Are you just a bunch of bullshit? Right? But I thought, how many of us, let's just assume it is true, because I'm telling you, reading his answers to the Ask Me Anything questions, I thought, how many people just like completely would disregard that? Just like, they're not, get lost, because they just don't have any understanding of what the experience would be. Now, it might just be chance, but 14 times, it's like, fuck.
Well, stuff like that, it in a lot of people, it would trigger a belief in something that feels threatening.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, I don't want that to be true because I'm supportive of the police. And so it's like an identity threat of, okay, this is part of what I believe in. And now this is challenging it. I'd rather ignore it and just not ask, well, what happened?
Or I'm just supportive of the idea that certain things are impossible, like magic. I watch a magic show. I'm like, okay, look, I know magic. It's not real. I know that the person did pull that card out of somewhere. I know it didn't come out of thin air. Like, this is a skill that this person has. Okay, so, well, same with when I hear 14 times he was stopped. I'm like, that's not possible. It's just not possible. It doesn't matter who you. And he said he wasn't speeding. No, I'm just like, the logic of it. It's so illogical. There's just not a chance that a single car could get pulled over 14 times on a single trip.
What's the end of this story, Sam? I need to know. Did you get in touch with him? Did he?
No, I never got in touch with him. But I'm thinking I'm going to talk to Jeff. I'm going to see if Jeff will get in touch with him because I really
I want to know the
details. So the idea of being how many people, it's just like, so I'm listening to you. I'm like, you're so thoughtful about talking about being a woman in academia and the different things. Like, how can anybody who would have a problem with that? Some people would, and that's part of the issue. It's part of why I do what I do and you do what you do. Yeah. All right, listen, I think we've gone on for 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I feel like, all right, man, you're not drinking water. I don't think I'm drinking water.
I
so.
know. Well, I'm all in. I'm so thrilled to have
Yeah.
had the conversation. It's been really awesome. Thank you for having me.
No, I really feel it feels really, really. It's nice. Oh my gosh, we'll have you on again. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Hey, Jeff, we're going to try to look up that guy, all right? Let's see if we can have a conversation with him.
I need to know.
All right, we'll make sure. If we do, we'll let you know.
Loop me in.
Yeah.
See everybody.
All right, listen. Hey, thanks, Jeff, for pulling it all together. And everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for your comments and thanks for the questions. And tomorrow, I think we have a really good, tomorrow we're going to talk about speech and free speech.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, just how students are thinking about that. I'm just curious. What are they thinking? I know what I think, but I don't know what they think. And so that's where we're at. Okay. So listen, Katherine, thank you. Be well, everybody. Really appreciate it.